Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. To retaliate for the fact that I had been married, my boyfriend and his childhood sweetheart registered their marriage. He smiled brightly, his eyes full of happiness. Their wedding date? The very same day I found out I was pregnant. I touched my belly and turned around to head to the hospital. While I was undergoing an abortion, he was praying for the safety of his other child. But later, when he saw my now flat stomach, he lost it and screamed at me like a madman. "Selena, you lunatic! Who gave you the right to kill his child?" Chapter 1. The wedding date was set for April 17th. That day was also the day I found out I was pregnant. In other words, Luis accompanied me to pick up my test results in the morning, and in the afternoon, he went and registered his marriage with Helen. My fingers trembled, nearly dropping the thin booklet in my hand. Over the past 2 years since reuniting with Luis, it felt like we had both moved past the painful memories of our past relationship. But now it seemed I was the only one who truly let go, and the only one who still wanted to love. I wiped away my tears and placed their marriage certificate back where I found it. Yet my heart pounded uncontrollably, each beat sending a jolt through my trembling hands. I pressed my left hand down, trying to steady it before slamming it repeatedly against the desk. "Stop it," I said. "Stop. Didn't you hear me?" I screamed hysterically, but tears kept pouring out like an unstoppable flood. My heart hurt. My hands hurt. Even my stomach began to ache. I bent over crying as I placed my hand over my cramping belly. "Baby, be good. Don't make a fuss. Mommy's fine. Mommy will protect you." 3 months pregnant, I had been eagerly anticipating this child's arrival every single day. I remember how happy Luis had been when we received the test results. Overjoyed, he held me tightly in his arms, stumbling over his words. He said he was the happiest man in the world. He had a beautiful wife and a lovely child. I laughed through my tears. How could I have believed him? How could I have believed that he had truly forgotten the past and wanted to start over with me? "Your eyes are red again. Have you been crying?" Luis bent down to change his shoes and walked over to hold me in his arms. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the bitterness in my chest, but at that moment, I caught a faint scent of perfume. It wasn't strong. It was even mixed with the smell of nicotine, but I still noticed it. I was certain I wasn't mistaken. The scent of gardenias. I had smelled it on Helen before. I closed my eyes and pushed Luis away. His brows furrowed and his tone turned cold. "Selena, what's wrong? Are you upset again? Or is the baby causing trouble?" He sounded helpless, his large hand gently stroking my swollen belly as if soothing the little one inside. He looked every bit the doting father, his tender expression almost making me doubt if the marriage certificate I saw was even real. "Luis, when are we getting married?" "The day I found out I was pregnant." I brought up registering our marriage, worried that taking photos with a big belly later wouldn't look good. But Luis said there was no rush. He suggested we wait until after the baby was born to register and hold the wedding banquet. That way we could even take family photos with the baby. I thought it was meaningful, so I agreed. In the past 3 months, I hadn't brought up marriage again. But today, when I mentioned it, Luis's gaze flickered with hesitation. He sighed helplessly. "Didn't we agree to wait until after the baby is born, Selena? Did you forget? Pregnancy really does mess with your memory, doesn't it?" Luis loosened his tie and stood up. "I'm going to take a shower. Don't overthink it. We'll definitely get married." He walked into the bedroom, leaving his phone on the coffee table. Not long after, notifications started popping up one after another. The contact name read Helen. My breathing grew quieter as I picked up the phone and unlocked it. I scrolled up, reading each message. "Are you home yet? You have no idea. Right after you left, the baby wouldn't stop moving. Honey, do you think he's really that intuitive? Maybe he knows his dad isn't sleeping beside him, so he's upset. But don't worry, I'll calm him down. I'll tell him his daddy loves him very much." My fingers trembled as I slowly set the phone back down. Each message was like a thorn stabbing into my heart. Honey, baby. So they were the real family. I was just an outsider. Chapter 2. When Luis came out, the droplets of water were still dripping from the strands of his damp hair. I tightened my grip on the cup in my hand, Some things needed to be addressed and it was time to make them clear. I opened my mouth but my throat felt dry and parched. Luis. Before I could finish, his phone rang. He frowned, walked to the balcony, and even closed the sliding glass door behind him. Through the glass I could see his expression shift, sometimes relaxed, sometimes tense, but the doting smile on his lips never wavered. The corners of my mouth twitched involuntarily as I lowered my gaze, suppressing the emotions swirling in my chest. Not long after Luis hung up the phone, a faint crease formed between his brows. There's an urgent matter at work. I need to go take care of it. Selena, go to bed. Don't wait up for me. He leaned down to press a kiss on my forehead, his voice soft and tender, dripping with affection. Be good. Get some rest. I watched his tall figure stride out with purpose, and my heart sank heavily. It was almost 10 at night. What kind of work could possibly demand his attention at this hour? And that call. Other than Helen, I couldn't think of anyone else it could be. Helen and Luis had grown up together. They were childhood sweethearts, deeply connected. When I first started dating Luis, she had secretly sought me out and told me to stay away from him. Of course I refused, and we ended up in a heated argument. She left in anger, but Luis simply waved it off, saying she was childish and would come back in a couple of days. Now, just one call from Helen, and he didn't hesitate to lie to me. Suddenly my stomach twisted in pain. The cramps were so sharp that my limbs turned cold, and beads of sweat formed on my forehead. I called Luis, and the moment he picked up, his impatient tone came through the line. Selena. Luis, my stomach hurts. Can you come back and take me to the hospital? On the other end, I could hear the faint sound of car horns, followed by Luis letting out a mocking laugh. You start having stomach pains as soon as I leave, Selena. You're really something. Even better at stirring up drama than you were 2 years ago. If it hurts that much, just go to the hospital. I'm not a doctor. I can't fix it. My breath caught in my throat, and the next second the line went dead. I cradled my belly, trying to soothe the baby inside while enduring the pain and calling 911. Luis had changed. Compared to how he was in college, all of his tenderness now came with a mask. And that mask, I had only managed to peel off a corner after 2 long years. After a series of tests, the doctor informed me that the abdominal pain was due to emotional distress. He glanced to my side, frowning. Did you come here alone? Where's your husband? I pressed my lips together, and the word husband felt like the cruelest mockery. I don't have a husband. For a brief moment, the doctor's expression turned odd. I added, Doctor, can I schedule an abortion? The doctor shook his head as if used to seeing people like me. He wrote me an order scheduling the procedure for 3 days later. Take care of yourself over the next 3 days. Avoid stress. Young lady, you need to cherish your body. His earnest advice made my heart ache for a moment. When the elevator doors opened, I walked in with my head down. A surprised voice called out, snapping me out of my thoughts. Selena. Luis pulled me to a corner. Why are you at the hospital? His tone carried a hint of interrogation, as if suspecting I was following him. I took out the doctor's note, and the coldness in his eyes seemed to ease a little. He reached out and gently touched my belly, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. What a naughty little one, making mommy so uncomfortable. Just wait until you're out. I'll deal with you. My eyes suddenly felt warm. That fatherly tone made me momentarily believe that he too was looking forward to this child. I turned my head away and silently stepped back 2 paces. Luis's hand froze midair, and his gaze darkened. In a soft voice I said, The doctor said it was fetal movement caused by emotional stress. My stomach still hurts, it keeps cramping. Hearing my explanation, Luis's expression finally softened. He took my hand and led me to a fancy restaurant. You've had a tough time with the pregnancy. It's my fault for being so busy lately and not spending enough time with you. How about I make it up to you today? Chapter 3. Luis didn't explain why he was at the hospital. I didn't ask either. It was as if we had simply bumped into each other by coincidence, and then decided to have a meal together. From start to finish, he remained calm and composed, without a hint of guilt. I cut into my steak, but my hand felt weak and unsteady. When I looked up, I met Luis's deep, piercing eyes. Those eyes seemed to hold an eternal frost. The next second, the frost melted, replaced by a faint smile. "Let me help you," he said. "Are you still feeling unwell? Should we go back to the hospital to get checked again?" The sound of the knife scraping against the plate was sharp and grating. I shook my head and Luis placed the plate in front of me. "Here, try this. I remember you used to love this steak back in college." I put a piece into my mouth, but it didn't taste the same as it used to. Instead, there was a hint of bitterness. Luis's phone suddenly lit up. He glanced at the screen and for a moment, his gaze softened. But the next second, he set the phone down and put it on silent. "Why aren't you answering?" I asked. Luis raised an eyebrow and replied gently, "I'll take care of it after we finish eating. Nothing else is as important as this." My grip on the knife tightened. How could that call not be important? It was from his wife, the mother of his child. I absent-mindedly picked at my food while Luis seemed to be in high spirits. I could clearly feel that he was in a good mood. Was it because he was enjoying the process of taking revenge on me? Enjoying the fact that I was completely unaware of what was happening? I tilted my head back and drank a glass of water, trying to suppress the bitterness in my heart. "I'm done. Take me home." Once we got back, Luis didn't even step inside the house before leaving again. He said there was something urgent at work, but I knew better. He was heading to the hospital. Earlier, when we passed by the wards, I had seen Helen's name on the screen mounted on the wall. She was hospitalized. I touched my belly. In just 3 days, this life would become nothing more than a pool of blood. I packed my suitcase, thinking I'd wait for Luis to come back and finally have an honest conversation with him. Let him hate me, let him take his revenge. At the very least, I wanted this relationship to end with clarity. But for 3 days, Luis didn't return. When I called him, he brushed me off with the excuse of being on a business trip. It wasn't until I passed by Helen's ward and saw Luis leaning down with his ear pressed against her belly that I realized none of it mattered anymore. There was no need to expose his lies. No need to ask for reasons. Leaving quietly would be enough. The day I had my procedure, Helen was also wheeled into surgery. From the end of the corridor, I saw Luis pacing back and forth, looking utterly frazzled, every step filled with unease. His hands were clasped together as he prayed for the safety of that child. But on that very same day, his other child was gone. And he didn't even know. I lowered my gaze and left a letter on Helen's bedside table. After that, I grabbed my suitcase and headed to the airport. I think this time it was truly goodbye between Luis and me. Sitting in the waiting lounge, my stomach still ached. When my phone rang, I weakly pressed the answer button. The moment the call connected, Luis's angry voice came through. "Selena, what the hell do you mean by never see you again? Are you planning to run away again?" I suddenly remembered the words I had left at the end of the letter. Never see you again. I thought back to the day we graduated from college. Everyone was preparing for their futures. Luis was busy preparing for ours. That day, he was so excited that his voice trembled as he spoke. He said, "Selena, we're going to have a house, adopt a cat and have 2 kids. He was rambling nonsensically, and as I watched him I laughed. And as I laughed I cried. I didn't want to burst that bubble, not even a little. So I spent the entire day indulging in his fantasy. That night he drank a lot. He got so drunk that even in his sleep, he mumbled about our future. But when he woke up the next day, he couldn't find me anywhere. All he found was a brown envelope on the bedside table. Inside the envelope was a letter, and in that letter I think I wrote the same words. Never see you again. Who would have thought that 3 years later we'd meet again and even end up together again? I opened my mouth to speak, but the lump in my chest made it hard to get the words out. Luis's heavy breathing echoed through the phone. I knew he was furious, but I didn't know if he was angry because he hadn't gotten to fully enjoy his revenge, or because I had discovered his scheme beforehand. Maybe it was both. "Luis," I said softly, my voice trembling. Honestly, when I saw that marriage certificate, it hurt. It hurt so much I could barely breathe. Then when I found out Helen was pregnant, it hurt even more.
Congratulations, Luis.
Your revenge was a success. Now can you let me go? There was silence for a moment before Luis let out a mocking laugh. So you already knew. How boring. I was planning to wait until you had the baby before telling you. Selena, you've been married before. Surely you wouldn't be so petty about this. Would you? So why are you throwing a tantrum now? Chapter 4. A chill ran down my spine, making my teeth chatter. So this is what it feels like. Luis no longer cared about my pain. I hung up the phone and deleted every way I had to contact him. As the plane took off, it felt like I was reliving that day. The only difference was that this time I left battered, scarred, and utterly defeated. After exiting the airport, I spotted a figure in the crowd shaking a sign with excitement. Forcing a smile, I walked toward him. Eric, upon seeing me, pulled me into a bear hug. Big sis, you're finally back. I missed you so much. I winced in pain, quickly patting his shoulder. Easy, I just had surgery. Eric's jaw dropped in shock. What surgery? What happened, sis? It's not serious, right? I shook my head. It's nothing serious. Eric was a chatterbox, talking nonstop during the car ride. Sis, that Luis guy, he didn't come back with you? 2 years ago. When I reunited with Luis, I had excitedly called Eric on a video call to tell him everything. Eric, though clearly exhausted, stayed up to listen to my entire story. Sis, if you both still love each other, then go for it. You've already missed one chance. You can't let it happen again. I nodded eagerly at the time, imagining all sorts of scenarios. What if Luis didn't love me anymore? What if he was single? I'd chase after him. What if he had a girlfriend? I'd bow out gracefully. But before I could make a move, Luis had already signaled that he wanted to reconcile. His words were heartfelt, his eyes brimming with tenderness. I panicked, gave in, and didn't even bother, questioning whether it was real or not. And so we got back together. 2 years, it had all been a lie. The car slowed to a stop, pulling me from my thoughts. I looked out the window at the familiar buildings, feeling a weight in my chest. Unbuckling my seatbelt, I noticed Eric wasn't moving. He reached out and pointed at my eyes. Sis, you're crying again. Instinctively, I touched the corner of my eye. Eric suddenly pulled me into another hug. Sis, did something happen? Did Luis? Did he hurt you? His eyes were filled with pain, his tone laced with anger. I patted his shoulder.
No.
Let's get out of the car. Mom's probably worried. It had been 2 years since I last came home, and stepping inside felt nothing like it had before. My mom took one look at my pale face, her expression filled with heartache. 2 years away, and this is what you've done to yourself? You've suffered so much. I shook my head, trying to muster a reassuring smile for her, but the smile turned out even uglier than crying. Out in the world, I'm an adult, but at home, I'm still my mother's child. I hugged my mom, seeking protection and comfort like I did when I was a child. She gently patted my back, over and over again. She didn't ask any questions, and I didn't explain why I had stayed away from home for 2 years. My family still believed I had only undergone a minor surgery. After half a month of resting at home, my body slowly began to recover. But the heaviness in my heart remained. Eric, worried that I might be slipping into depression, dragged me out of the house. Sis, you can't stay cooped up at home all day. You're going to drive yourself crazy. I'm the pillar of this family now. If something's bothering you, just tell me. I'll always have your back. Eric has always been perceptive. Though I didn't tell him the details, he had already guessed most of it. I forced a faint smile and let him pull me along. He took me to get a fresh haircut and an elegant makeover. Bright eyes and red lips. There wasn't a trace of my previous gloom. Eric took me to an auction. He squeezed my hand lightly and grinned. Sis, whatever catches your eye, just bid on it. Your little brother will buy it for you. I managed a weak smile. All right, I won't hold back then. The auction items were dazzling. My eyes landed on a ring said to have belonged to a princess from some foreign country. I couldn't wait to claim it as my own. What started at 20 million escalated to 80 million. My excitement grew and I nervously clenched my fingers. Then a deep voice suddenly rang out. 100 million. The crowd erupted in shock. My expression froze and my mind went blank. That voice, I knew it too well. I had thought I'd never see him again in this lifetime. Who could have guessed we'd meet so soon? My heart skipped a beat as I felt his intense gaze on me. Eric turned to look back and grumbled. Sis, keep going. Ignore him. When I didn't move, Eric raised his paddle. I reached out to tug on his sleeve. Forget it. Let's leave. I pulled Eric to his feet, pretending to stay calm as we walked past Luis. Just as we passed him, a large hand suddenly grabbed my wrist. I felt like I was being haunted and instinctively yanked it free. The force of my reaction almost made me lose my balance, but Eric quickly steadied me. Luis, that ring is so beautiful. Will you help me put it on later? The sweet, saccharine voice pierced through me like needles, making my skin crawl. Luis's gaze flickered as he replied in a low voice, "Sure." I paused for a brief moment before hurrying out of the auction house like I was escaping. Outside, I gulped down the fresh air, trying to suppress the turmoil in my chest. Eric's face was dark, his voice quieter than usual. "Sis, was that Luis?" I slowed my movements, nodding slowly under Eric's questioning gaze. He let out 2 heavy breaths, clenching his teeth. "Damn it! That heartless bastard! I'm going to teach him a lesson." Eric was furious, his stance one of someone ready to tear Luis apart. Quickly grabbed him. "Don't cause trouble. I have nothing to do with him anymore. What's broken should stay broken." Luis's actions were no longer my concern. When it's over, it should end cleanly. As Eric and I struggled, a mocking voice suddenly rang out. "Selena, you're really something. 5 years ago you left because of another man. And now you're leaving again for another man. Are you really that desperate and shameless?" The last words came out through gritted teeth. A sharp pain struck my chest, but I lowered my gaze, suppressing the bitterness within. "Luis, you have no right to judge me." Luis let out a cold laugh. "No right? Don't forget you were carrying my child. And you ran to be with another man. And you say I have no right?" His words were cutting, each one sharper than the last. His eyes filled with mockery and disdain. Over the 2 years we had reunited, I thought Luis hadn't changed. But now I realized he had changed long ago. The gentleman I once knew was gone, replaced by someone full of hatred. No, he was still gentle, but that gentleness was no longer for me. My heart calmed bit by bit. Before I could respond, Eric seemed to piece everything together. He looked at me in disbelief. "Pregnant? The surgery you mentioned, was that?" I nodded silently under his shocked gaze. Eric suddenly lost it, lunging at Luis with his fists. "You bastard! I'll kill you." One punch after another, each one landing with force. Luis, stunned at first, soon fought back, and the two of them grappled violently. "You shameless scoundrel! Can't believe you're even more impatient than me, Selena. Your taste has really gone downhill." I rushed to pull Eric away. "Stop it, both of you. Eric!" But as I reached out, Eric accidentally knocked me to the ground. Pain shot up my spine, making me gasp in pain. Looking up, I spotted Helen cowering in a corner, looking utterly helpless. Her belly was round, and her hands protectively cradled it. On her right middle finger, she was wearing the ring from the auction. I averted my eyes, raising my voice. "Eric, I told you to stop." He froze, looking at me in disbelief. Propping myself up, I grabbed him, noticing the bruises forming on his mouth. I let out a heavy sigh. "Let's go. I have nothing to do with him anymore. Don't hurt yourself over someone who isn't worth it." Chapter 6. I didn't look at Luis, but I knew his injuries couldn't be much better than Eric's. After all, Eric had been training in boxing since he was a kid, while Luis only knew how to throw clumsy punches. Luis spat out a mouthful of blood and sneered at me. "Selena, leaving just like that? Not going to talk about the child? Or is he?" Luis gestured toward Eric, willing to be a stepdad. "You." Eric, furious, tried to step forward again, but I quickly held him back and met Luis's gaze coldly. "Luis, I forgot to tell you. I've already had the child removed. There's nothing tying us together anymore." Luis froze for a moment, then looked at my now flat stomach in disbelief. When he realized I was telling the truth, his eyes darkened, filled with cold fury. He yelled my name, his voice dripping with anger. "Selena, you're out of your damn mind. Who gave you the right to kill him?" I stared at his sudden outburst, confused at first. Then it hit me, this was all part of his revenge. The child was just another piece of his plan. He hadn't expected me to uncover the truth before he could reveal it himself. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. "Luis, your revenge was already a success. Truly. You have no idea how much it hurt when I saw you outside the operating room praying for your other child while I was losing ours. But at least I'm grateful things didn't spiral beyond control. At least he didn't have to be born into the world with the label of illegitimate. But Luis, you disgust me. You couldn't even spare our child. How much do you hate me, really? 5 years ago, my family's company ran into financial trouble. My father, desperate to force me into a marriage alliance, didn't hesitate to threaten Luis's future. Back then, Luis was proud and ambitious. If he had known the truth, there's no telling how he would have reacted. So I left him a letter and walked away. I thought that was the end of us, that we'd never cross paths again. But 3 years later, we met once more. I didn't hide the fact that I'd been married, and he surprisingly didn't seem to mind. I hadn't realized his indifference was all an act. Deep down, he hated me for leaving him, hated me for betraying him. Luis stood there like a statue, his lips trembling. Selena, you shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have taken him away. His voice was full of sorrow as he took a step toward me. Before he could take another step, Helen suddenly clutched her belly and cried out, "Luis, my stomach hurts. Is the baby in trouble again?" A flash of panic crossed Luis's face as he quickly scooped Helen into his arms, his retreating figure full of chaos and urgency. Eric muttered curses under his breath the entire way back. I smiled indifferently. If I'm not angry, why are you? How can it be the same, sis? If you'd told me earlier, I would have beaten him so badly he couldn't even crawl. But it's partly my fault. If I'd been older, you wouldn't have been forced into that arranged marriage with Leo. I glanced out the window and Eric's tone softened. Back then, the company was in dire straits, and marrying into Leo's family was the best solution. Later, the company recovered, and Leo fully took over his family business, finally ending our hollow marriage. By the way, sis, there's a banquet tomorrow. You should come with me. You can't stay home all the time. Dad's gone, and if you keep this up, Mom will only get more worried. I nodded and agreed to attend. It had been 2 years since I'd attended an event like this. Stepping back into such a setting now, I no longer felt the ease I once did. I played the role of a decorative companion by Eric's side, watching him navigate the crowd with practiced confidence. A faint smile crossed my lips. Eric is 6 years younger than me. Back when the company was in crisis, he was still a teenager. When he found out about my arranged marriage, he locked himself in his room and cried all night, refusing to listen to anyone. On the day of my wedding, he held my hand and said solemnly, "Sis, when I grow up, it'll be my turn to protect you." Seeing him now, standing on his own 2 feet, I could only imagine the effort it took to get here. Feeling a bit bored, I excused myself to get some air in the garden. I hadn't expected to run into Luis there. Dressed in a black suit, his broad shoulders and narrow waist were more striking than in our college days. He had become even more attractive. I glanced at him indifferently and stood to leave, but he grabbed my wrist. "Selena, we need to talk." I looked at his hand, feeling the warmth of his touch radiate through me. "I don't think we have anything to talk about, Mr. Luis. Don't forget, you're a married man. Let go." Luis's expression shifted, his lips parting slightly as he spoke. "Helen's child isn't mine." The garden was so quiet that I could hear every word with clarity. "But so what?" I smiled faintly. "Luis, your explanation is so weak that even if I wanted to believe you, I couldn't." His eyelashes fluttered, and the mocking, calculating demeanor he used to have was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was a trace of bitterness. "Selena, you say you were hurt. But have you ever thought about how much it hurt me when you left? You left without a word, leaving only a breakup letter. Do you know how long I searched for you? I went crazy looking for you everywhere I could think of. I even asked our counselor for your home address. Do you know what I saw when I arrived? You wearing a wedding dress getting into a car. Do you know how much that broke me? It wasn't just you who was hurt. You weren't the only one with feelings. Luis and I were like 2 intersecting lines. Strangers at first, then lovers, and finally drifting apart. There was no turning back now. Luis, you've had your revenge. The child is gone. Let the past stay in the past. Go back and live your life with her. Let's not see each other again. This relationship, it wasn't anyone's fault. It was just cruel fate." Suddenly, a firm presence pressed against my back. Luis's arms encircled my waist tightly, and his voice came softly above my head. "I thought I could let go of the past, stop entangling myself with you. But I lasted only half a month, Selena. I can't do it. I can't forget you. Helen's child isn't mine, and the marriage certificate, I can take care of it. I won't act out of spite anymore. I'll divorce her immediately. Then let's be together, all right? His pleas came down on me word by word, but they no longer stirred my heart like they did 2 years ago. I tried to pry his hands away, but they wouldn't budge. Sighing, I said helplessly, "Luis, let go." "No, I won't. I won't." His tone carried a trace of panic. I closed my eyes for a moment. Then suddenly someone approached us. Miss Selena Leo appeared, one hand casually in his pocket, the golden frames of his glasses glinting under the lights. His eyes were filled with playful amusement. Taking advantage of Luis's momentary distraction, I quickly slipped out of his grasp and hurried toward Leo. Perhaps it was the 3 years of collaboration, but Leo instinctively positioned himself to shield me behind him. Luis's face darkened with displeasure. "Selena, who is he?" Leo chuckled lightly. "Me? I'm Miss Selena's ex-husband, Leo." Luis's face turned even uglier as he ground out the words ex-husband through clenched teeth. Luis reached out his hand. "Selena, come here." I shook my head. "Luis, I've made myself clear. It doesn't matter if the child Helen is carrying is yours or not. It doesn't matter if you married her out of spite. None of it matters anymore. There's no need for us to continue." Luis opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but Leo cut him off. "Sir, I think Selena has said everything that needs to be said. If you keep pestering her, it'll only get worse. Goodbye." I followed Leo to the lounge. Eric was already there along with a woman I didn't recognize. The woman had a poised and elegant appearance, her white gown emphasizing her gentle and graceful demeanor. She raised her hand slightly. "Miss Selena." I paused momentarily, caught off guard. Leo took her hand and rubbed it gently, smiling faintly. "Let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Amanda." The realization dawned on me. Leo had always had a white moonlight in his heart, someone named Amanda. When we entered our arranged marriage, he had told me up front that it was purely a partnership with no actual romantic involvement. Once he took control of his family's business, we would divorce. Of course, he also promised not to cut off support from my family. Everything he did was to be with Amanda openly and without obstacles. I asked Amanda, "Did you ever resent him or doubt him? After all, he's been married before." Amanda smiled. "Of course I was upset. He didn't tell me anything and chose to face everything on his own. Wouldn't you be angry? But I'm not upset anymore. I understand now, everything he did was for me. And your marriage was just a partnership. Besides, he knelt outside my door for 3 days. If I stayed mad, I'd only be hurting myself." I smiled knowingly, admiring her grace and understanding. Eric grinned. "Leo's the best. He got my sister back so smoothly. If it had been me, I wouldn't have left without a fight." It turned out that Eric had sent Leo to the garden. The banquet hadn't ended yet, but I no longer wanted to stay. Eric frowned. "Sis, I still have another dinner to attend. How about I have someone take you home?" "No need. I'll just call a cab. Go ahead with your plans." As I opened the lounge door, I nearly bumped into a solid figure. Luis stood there upright like a statue. His expression was strange, making it hard to read his emotions. I spoke calmly. "Step aside. You're blocking my way. Why didn't you tell me?" His low voice came from above. I froze, taking a few seconds to process his words. Back then, I didn't tell him because I was afraid he'd cause a scene. Later, I didn't tell him because he didn't seem to care about my past marriage, so I saw no need to explain. I took a deep breath and stopped Eric from stepping in. "Eric, don't you have a dinner to attend? Go ahead. I'll handle this." He hesitated for a moment. I glanced at Leo, and our 3 years of cooperation allowed us to understand each other without words. After everyone left, it was just Luis and me in the lounge. He closed the door and suddenly pulled me into an embrace.
I'm sorry, Selena.
"I'm so sorry." His voice carried a hint of a sob, stripped of its usual coldness and composure. "Selena, hate me, blame me, but please don't leave me. Feelings are the hardest thing to hold anyone accountable for." My fingers trembled slightly as I slowly placed them over Luis's hands. For a moment, his expression lit up with joy. But in the next second, I gently pushed him away. Sorry, I don't love you anymore. Chapter 8. If I hadn't discovered that marriage certificate, I would have carried that child to term in anticipation. At that time, Luis might have looked down on me with disdain before delivering the final fatal blow. I would have become the mistress everyone despised. My child would have been scorned as an illegitimate child. If that moment came, I would have had no means to fight back. Luis wouldn't have shown any mercy. It's terrifying. I'm grateful I uncovered the truth in time. Luis's eyes were bloodshot, and he shook his head, his face filled with anguish. Selena, please give me another chance. I'll take care of everything. I won't let anyone else interfere anymore. We can start over. I'll marry you. I'll make you my wife. Luis spoke passionately. But suddenly, a commotion came from outside the door. This is the room. Miss Selena is inside and so is my husband. The door slammed open and a crowd of people with cameras rushed in. Flashes rained down like a storm. Miss Selena, some say you knowingly became the other woman. Can you explain this? Miss Selena, we've heard you had an abortion. Was the child Mr. Luis's? Miss Selena. Miss Selena. Their constant questions and the blinding lights left me dizzy. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Helen with an insidious smile on her lips, her eyes brimming with fake tears. Luis and I are legally married and I'm already 3 months pregnant. Selena is the mistress. She's the other woman. Who said she's the mistress? Put your cameras down. Can you bear the consequences if something happens? Luis's tone was icy as he shielded me behind him. A sharp pain flared in my stomach. Even though it had been over 2 weeks, the discomfort still came and went. I stepped out from behind him, scanning the crowd with a cold gaze. The reporters' faces resembled gaping jaws, eager to tear me apart. Luis nervously grabbed my hand. Selena, don't be afraid. I'll handle this. Just stay behind me. Luis, I'm your wife. How can you protect this woman? Have you forgotten? We're legally married. A mocking smile tugged at my lips as I noticed the cold indifference and impatience in Luis's eyes. They were married, it was a fact that couldn't be changed. Miss Selena, does your silence mean you're admitting it? Are you really the other woman? And what about your child? Why didn't you keep it? Would you have given birth to an illegitimate child? I coldly retorted at the reporter, my voice sharp and unwavering. I ignored the expression on Luis's face and spoke coldly. Luis and I started our relationship 2 years ago. He's the one who married another woman while I was pregnant. So if anything, I've been made into the mistress. And as for her, I pointed at Helen and continued, emphasizing each word. She should count as a mistress who successfully climbed her way up. After all, she's always been aware of my relationship with Luis. Immediately, all the sharp questions turned toward Helen and Luis. Expressionless, I watched Helen shrieking and Luis's panic before calmly walking out of the chaos. It didn't take long before my name hit the trending searches. When Eric found out, he immediately contacted the company's PR team, scrambling to handle the trending topics. Shortly after, another headline surged to the top. Helen fainting at the scene and Luis rushing her to the hospital in a panic. Compared to their frantic reactions, I was much calmer. By late that night, I received a call from Luis. His voice sounded exhausted. I've taken care of the trending topics, Selena. I'll make this right for you. Just wait for me. All right, but don't make me wait too long, I replied coolly. I'm not some saint. Helen calling the reporters to drag me into this mess made me the center of attention online. Of course, I wouldn't let her off easily either. So when Eric uncovered details about her relationship with Luis and released them online, I didn't stop him. He even found out Helen had a consistent lover, and the child she was carrying belonged to him. Once these revelations were made public, the focus on me quickly diminished. A few days later, Luis called again. His voice was low, and I could hear noise on his end of the line. Selena, I've explained everything to Helen. We've signed the divorce agreement and I've resolved the issues online. We can. There's no we, I interrupted him sharply. Just a few hours ago, Helen had called to vent her frustrations at me. She screamed hysterically. Selena, I worked so hard to be with Luis and now you've ruined everything. If you've already left him, stay far away. Can't you stop interfering in our lives? Luis married you purely to get back at me. I calmly stated the truth. But Helen didn't care in the slightest. So what? I'm willing to be used by him as long as you don't know anything. He'll always be my husband. Helen, this lunatic, was truly willing to go to any lengths for Luis. I couldn't be bothered to argue with her anymore. My disgust for Luis grew even deeper. The trending topic about Helen being the mistress refused to die down, and Luis didn't seem to care enough to intervene. He stood outside my house for days, but I refused to let him in. Then came a day when the sky opened up in a torrential downpour, and Luis stood stiffly in the rain. I looked out at the darkened skies and closed the window, instructing a servant to bring him an umbrella and a keychain. That keychain was once a token of our love, something Luis had given me. Back then, he was just a broke young man surviving on a meager 1,200 yuan a month. The keychain had cost 50, but I liked it and he bought it for me without hesitation. That was the day I thought he was the one. When the door opened, Luis's lifeless eyes suddenly lit up. But the moment he saw the keychain, the light on his face faded into despair once more. She still won't forgive me. I should have known. There's no going back. Hiding behind the curtains, I watched as Luis held the keychain with trembling hands. His desolate figure stumbled step by step into the distance. His silhouette gradually disappeared into the rain. I couldn't tell if it was the mist blurring him, or if he had walked into the mist itself. After that, I never saw him again.